Do you want to achieve super success? Well, on today's show, the public relations expert of choice for Michael Jackson, Prince, Nike, Pizza Hut, 3 United States presidents, 58 Academy Award winners, 3 Grammy Award winners, 43 New York Times bestselling authors, and a no-talent podcast host / entrepreneur guy by the name of Clay Clark, Michael Levine joins us to break down the shared traits of super successful people.
Some shows don't need a celebrity narrator to introduce the show, but this show does. 2 men, 8 kids, co-created by 2 different women, 13 multi-million-dollar businesses. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Thrivetime Show.
Now, 3, 2, 1, here we go!
Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now we here.
Yes, and yes. And now Thrive Nation back by popular demand. My good friend, Mr. Michael Levine. Michael, how are you doing?
I am well. I am impacted by your passion. I see so much apathy amongst so many people that just hearing your voice and the passion underneath it is appealing and interesting to me.
For those of you who feel like you might be saying, I feel like I've heard this interview before. Yes, I believe that you may have heard portions of this interview. But what I want to do on today's show is I want to break down the knowledge bombs that Michael Levine is dropping one by one. So throughout the show, whenever he drops a knowledge bomb, I'm going to drop a bomb, and then I'm going to break down what he's talking about. Michael started off the interview by telling me that he appreciated my passion, which I am honored to hear that he picks up on that. And hopefully you as a listener pick up on that. But the teaching moment for you is Napoleon Hill, the best-selling author of Think and Grow Rich. Think and Grow Rich, the #1 self-help book of all time. The guy who wrote the book was the personal apprentice for Andrew Carnegie. He once wrote, there is one quality which one must possess to win, and that is definiteness of purpose, the knowledge of what one wants, and a burning desire to possess it, or a passion to possess it. What I'm talking about is the reason why I do this podcast each and every day is because, actually nine shows a week, not that I'm counting, but the reason why that I do this is because I am passionate about your success. I know what it's like to struggle and to not know what to do or how to improve your financial situation or not knowing the next step. And so I believe that my job is to be America's #1 business coach as a result of, as a byproduct of, mentoring millions. Every day, somebody out there like you emails me and says, gosh, I started implementing the systems and my life is changing dramatically. And that's why I do what I do. So make sure that you don't move on before you write down the answer to this question. What is your burning desire? What are you passionate about? And when I say passionate about, or what do you have a burning desire about, I mean, what are you willing to trade for it? What are you willing to trade off for what you want? Are you willing to trade off some sleep? Maybe some sweets? It'd be foods filled with sugar. Are you willing to trade off time in your bowling league? What are you willing to say no for? What are you willing to say no to in exchange for what you want? And if you're not willing to trade off things for what you want, then you really don't want it. It's not really something you're passionate about. And you cannot succeed if you're not passionate about something because there's just way too much adversity and rejection that we all must face. Now, Michael, I appreciate you saying that. You've been the PR consultant of the public relations consultant of choice for so many successful people. I'd love to tap into the mindset of successful people versus the mindset of the average person. Could you talk to me about something maybe that super successful people know about, that secret that super successful people know about that most people don't?
Yes, I can and will, and I'm honored by the question. Let me first just explain to your audience something that I think you may know, which is that I was born in New York City. I was born 2.5 miles north of Ground Zero. I was born into a not ideal family. There was an alcoholic parent. And I, in addition to that, and anyone who's ever been raised in an alcoholic home knows that's very, very, very difficult. But in addition to that, I had another significant problem, a disability that wasn't known very well at the time, and that is now referred to as dyslexia. Mm-hmm. And I say now because 40 years ago we had a different word for dyslexia. It was called dumb. So these disadvantages, right, being raised in an alcoholic home, I was as virtually all dyslexics are, a very, very poor student, barely graduated high school. And these disadvantages really helped form me. And essentially what I came to conclude about my situation, I left the house at age 17, is that since I wasn't formally educated, and since I'm not that smart, I better increase my powers of observation.
Oh, there's so much there to break down. But think about this for a second. Michael Levine, the number one PR consultant in the world, grew up what? Poor. Grew up what? Dyslexic. Grew up with what? An alcoholic family. So Michael Levine had every disadvantage. But instead of becoming bitter, he decided to become better. And he could only do that by becoming self-aware. So I'm asking you today, are you deciding to become a victim or a victor? What is the disadvantage that you could turn into your advantage? The guy was dyslexic and he's a best-selling author. He can't read very well, right? But he's a best-selling author. But he didn't view it as a what? He didn't view it as a setback. He viewed it as a set up. He didn't use it as a reason to become bitter. He used it as a motivation to become better. That is what successful people do. You see, all successful people view their failures and setbacks as a prerequisite, as a stepping stone to their ultimate achievements. All successful people that I've ever spent time with view failure as a prerequisite to success and as a stepping stone to where they want to go. So I'm asking you, right? What disadvantage? What bad deck of cards? What bad hand of cards? What bad situation have you been dealt? Did you grow up dyslexic, or did you grow up in an alcoholic family? Did you grow up without money? What are the list of excuses that you can make? And as soon as you say, you know what, I'm not going to let my excuses define me. I'm not going to become the excuse meister. I'm going to become a person who is turning my haterade into motivation. I'm somebody who can turn my disadvantage into my advantage. I'm somebody who can turn my setbacks into my setups. The moment that you refuse to believe your own excuses, you will win.
Right?
Right.
So I tell people all the time, and I mean it, and I know it sounds kind of humorous, I'm not very bright, but I'm significantly above average at watching what bright people do. And I'm also significantly above average, if I may say, at watching what not so bright people do. And I came to conclude the obvious, which is success leaves clues, and so does failure. And again, since I'm not very bright, I figured out that if I increased my powers of observation, if I watched the world very keenly and people very keenly, I would learn what successful people do, and I'd learn what idiots do. Or maybe a more polite way of saying it is, I'd learn what affluent people do, and I'd also learn what people, exhausted, broke folks do, and I would try to do more of the better actions, since I like to eat and since I didn't have any education. And so that was it. And success does leave clues, and so does failure.
Thrive Nation, do you know how I became one of the top 3 search engine optimization experts on the planet? Do you know how I did it? I began to study sites that ranked well in Google and sites that did not rank well in Google. And that's how I came up with the Search Engine Manifesto, the SEO Manifesto, the Search Engine Optimization Manifesto, which is available for free to download, as thousands upon thousands of people often do, by going to thrivetimeshow.com. You can download the Start Here book for free, and in the ebook version of the Start Here book, you will find the SEO Manifesto. Companies all over the world. I've spoken with Hewlett-Packard. I've spoken with Maytag. I've spoken for O'Reilly's Auto Parts. I've spoken with UPS. The guys in Brown. What can Brown do for you? I go on and on. Farmers Insurance, huge companies. They all pay me to teach the proven systems. And one of the systems I've been taught to or paid to teach back in the day when I still traveled around doing speaking events was search engine optimization. And how do I know it? How have I become such an expert of it? It's because I've studied. When I say study, I've spent an exhaustive, extensive, a massive amount of time myopically focusing on why do certain websites come up top in Google and why do certain websites not. And the reason why I've become a master of time management is because I've spent a lot of time with actual millionaires and billionaires, and I've asked them, how do you organize their day? How do you organize your day? I mean, the founder of Hobby Lobby, I've asked him, it was a billion-dollar company. How do you organize your day, Mr. David Green? I've asked Maurice Kanbar, the founder of Sky Vodka. Mr. Maurice Kanbar, how do you organize your day? I've met Chet Cadjo, the president and CEO of Quick Trip, the billion-dollar convenience store chain. Sir, how do you organize your day? I've met David Robinson, the NBA Hall of Famer turned very, very successful investor. Visit his website, Admiral. It's the Admiral Fund. Just do a Google search for the Admiral Fund, and you will see it's the Admiral Capital Fund. The Admiral Capital Fund. Just Google search it. You'll see David Robinson, what he's up to, having more success off the court than on the court. And I've asked him, how do you organize your day? Lee Cockrell, the former executive vice president of Walt Disney World Resorts, who once managed 40,000 employees. And I've asked him, hey, how do you organize your day? And that is how you become successful. And then you just study people that are having no success. And you go, wow, gosh, the guy who spends his entire day on Facebook making ClickFunnels and attending every single possible networking event, that guy has no success. I probably shouldn't do that. Wow, the guy arguing about politics on Facebook has no success. I probably shouldn't do that. Gosh, the DJ company that's my competitor that's failing, they're doing XYZ. I probably shouldn't do that. The haircut competitor we deal with, and for the elephant in the room. The Elephant in the Room Men's Grooming Lounge is a business I own, but one of our competitors does just unbelievable jackassery that approaches what I would call a crime against the marketing humanity. It's so terrible, it's almost laughable. But I watch him and I go, wow, I probably should not do that. So I ask you today, what should you be doing and what should you stop doing? As an example, I've never met a millionaire or a billionaire who does not, on average, start their day 3 hours before everybody else. Every millionaire and billionaire I've met wakes up at either 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. every time. And I say, without exception, this happens. The only time I've seen somebody who has a slightly different approach would be like Dr. Zellner, because this guy works an extra 3 hours every day, but he used to do it after everybody went to bed. So this guy would, stay up and burn the midnight oil and do it that way. But all successful people are there's no hack to it. These guys are getting up at, 5 a.m. every day. In Z's case, he's probably going to bed at 5 a.m. every day. But the point is, when you study successful people, when you're around super successful people, you are going to discover that they work very hard. Very hard. And they actually have an unfair head start on everybody else because they work harder than everybody else. Ryan Tedder, who I went to college with, he has a notable quote that I love so much. He says, when you're around enormously successful people, you realize their success isn't an accident. It's about work.
And Mark Twain had it right, Clay. Never, ever, ever let school interfere with your education. And so you've put an army of people together listening to this podcast. I think the army now about 500,000 in size.
Yeah.
And these people clearly are trying to listen, to gather, to observe from you and others things that will assist them in their journey. And I commend you, because an army of 500,000 is pretty impressive. And so I'm happy to share with you some observations that I've had over a very long and unusual and unexpected career about what super successful people do and what people who underachieve do.
Craig Groeschel is currently the pastor of the largest Protestant church in America. And we interviewed him today. And the podcast will be released here in the coming weeks. But Craig has a church of over 100,000 people, Right. And I asked him, what time do you get to work? And he says, between 5 and 6 a.m. No, we're not talking about waking up. It's just between 5 and 6. I say, and he's in great physical shape. And I said, Craig, are you taking steroids? Just kind of jokingly. And he says, no, I just eat meat and vegetables, no carbs. That's what I do. Right. And I'm like, well, how do you find time to write your sermons? I'm asking these questions. And it doesn't matter whether I'm interviewing Craig Groeschel or Michael Levine or the guy who used to manage Walt Disney World. All of you guys are not scared of waking up before 7 a.m. None of you run around making excuses, talking about how you just don't have time to get things done. And you all have this burning, maniacal passion to succeed. And my goal of today's show is to give people a seed of the burning passion needed to succeed. And it's up to them whether they're going to water it or not. So I want to ask you, can you show the difference in the goals between the goals being set by successful people and the super successful people like Michael Jackson, like Prince, like the founders of Nike?
Well, look, if I were sitting in a Starbucks with any individual listening to this show right now, what I would first say is, look, it all begins with one question. There is one question, and it is exactly the same question in the professional part of life as the personal part of life. It's not a different question. It's the same question. It has two parts, and until you can answer this question comfortably, clearly, effectively, you are basically driving in a circle. You're wasting massive amounts of time and energy. And so the question is this, and anyone listening to this, write it down. The question is, and it's the same for personal as professional, what do you most want, and what are you willing to give up to get it? What do you most want, and what are you willing to give up to get it? What do you most want, and what are you willing to give up to get it?
Thrive Nation, that is a powerful question that so few people ever ask themselves. What do I really want? So I'm asking you right now, what do you really want, and what are you willing to trade off to get it? To build DJ Connection, the #1 wedding entertainment company in America during its time, djconnection.com. It's still doing very, very well today. It's growing, expanding under new ownership. They're doing a very good job. I was willing to give up everything. Sleep, TV. Check it out. I was willing to give up TV. Right there, I'm freeing up 5.2 hours a day for the average American. I was willing to give up distractions. We didn't have social media when I first started DJ Connection, but as I grew it, we did. That's 2.3 hours a day the average person is spending on social media. I was willing to give up TV and social media. Right there, that's 7.5 hours per day. I was willing to give up intramural sports. I remember there's some intramural football game, and I remember going, I don't want to be here. This is not helping me get to my goal. I was willing to give up relationships with people that I knew just as a result of geographical convenience. Just because I was your neighbor, or I went to church with you, or I knew you from somebody who knew you, or whatever the geography was. Just because we knew each other because of that doesn't mean you should occupy 5%, 10% of my waking hours. You're not essential to my goals. You're not adding value to my life. I can't add value to your life. You call me and lament about personal issues and bad moral choices on a consistent basis, and I just simply decided not to spend time with people that were not in a people who I was not able to have a sustainable, mutually beneficial relationship with.
That's the question. And until you get real clear on the answer to that, you're basically just driving in a circle. You're wasting a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of energy, probably a lot of money. You're probably tired, frustrated, and broke. And probably belittling and blaming the world for those conditions.
I want to hammer home something you just said and give a lot of examples for the listeners out there, John, because John's our program observer, and he's going to take notes here. But I just want to give the listeners an example. Bill Gates knew what he was looking to build. And so Bill Gates, his overnight success story started in 1975. And in 1986, he went public. But for 11 years, he asked himself, what did he most want, and what was he willing to give up to get it? He actually moved to Albuquerque from Seattle to get his first deal. He actually moved there. Apple, Steve Jobs, he turned his parents' garage into the founding place of Apple in 1976, and they really didn't do well until about 1984. Google, think about this, Larry and Sergey, they started Google in 1996, and they didn't make a profit, Michael, and you know this, but until 1999. Facebook started in 2005, and they lost $3.63 million after their first 2 years. Amazon did not report a profit for 7 years. I met you, I think, 5 years ago, and I think we had one subscriber to the podcast, and now we have 500,000 people listening. Can you
By the way, two quick notes on something you were saying. Sure. Bill Gates, brilliant remark, brilliant notation. Bill Gates says that the human being inevitably overestimates that which they can do in a year and underestimates that which they can do in 10 years.
True.
Now listen to that. Friends, my friends in the audience, listen carefully. I want you to write it down. Bill Gates says the human being inevitably overestimates that which they can accomplish in a year and underestimates that which they can accomplish in 10. Isn't that interesting? See, that's worth the whole price of the show. See, if you write it down, if you think about that. Now, Mark Zuckerberg. Mark was at Harvard. Mark called 5 of his friends at Harvard to a meeting on a Saturday afternoon. He called them all and he said, and they were all friends of his, and he said, look, gentlemen, I've been working on something very important, very, very significant. Please join me at my dorm room on Saturday for a meeting, a 2-hour meeting. It'll be a very important opportunity to meet and discuss what I've been working on. Of the 5 people he invited, right? These are friends of his at Harvard, young and ambitious and smart. How many of the 5 showed up?
I'm going to have to say 1, because that would be like what I would see in the world. It's usually about 20% of people are even trying.
Well, the answer is 2.
Oh, I'm a negative
3
guy.
of the 5 were too busy.
Too busy. Got a lot of going
Now,
on.
the 2 that did show, yeah?
Yeah.
What happened to their story? Well, they're both billionaires.
Just showing up.
So, just showing up, right? Now, the other 3 were too busy. Isn't that fascinating?
Thrive Nation, if you're out there, do you want to speculate as to what time I'm recording this show? What time do you think, as a father of 5, I'm recording this show? Now, this show is being recorded. A little hint, we have our biggest in-person Thrivetime show workshop of all time occurring today. Probably at the time you're hearing this. So what time do you think that I am recording this show? I don't know. 6 p.m.? Nope. 7 p.m.? Nope. 8 p.m.? No. I am recording this show at 2 a.m. And you know why that I'm recording today's show at 2 a.m.? Because I have a workshop I'm doing today with hundreds of great people, and you, the listener, have subscribed to our podcast. Therefore, you deserve to have 9 new shows a week. I've committed to doing that, and I'm going to do it, right? So I had to make a trade-off. And so part of it is I just had to show up, right? So I went to bed at 9 p.m. Go to bed, it's 9 until, if I went to bed, 9 to 2, that'd be 5 hours. The point is, a little bit sleep deprived, but I got it done. I didn't make an excuse. And let me tell you this little secret. I had some Dayquil. I've had some Dayquil because I got a little bit of sniffles, I don't feel very good, but I'm doing it. I'm making it happen. And you know why I'm making it happen? Because I've committed to doing it. And so many people only work hard on the days that they feel like it. So many people only work hard on the days that they feel like it. And it is so hard. It's so hard to get much done when you only work on the days you feel good. Jerry West, the Hall of Fame basketball player, legendary NBA executive, man who was born in 1938, once wrote, "You can't get much done in life if you only work on the days when you feel good." Because there are many days where we just don't feel good. So I'm asking you, do you show up when you don't feel good? And if you do show up when you don't feel good, then great. But if you don't show up on the days that you don't feel good, then we need to fix that, right? We need to go ahead and fix that. We need to show up on the days that we don't feel good.
See, friends, you have to think about this. And all successful people, and I don't mean most, all successful people have what I would refer to as a reverence for time. So I'll tell you something a little quirky about me, Clay.
Yes, sir.
I live in a home, and in every room of my home, I have two things, right? I have a large clock, and I have a timer in every room. Wow, that's kind of interesting, Michael. Why do you do that? Well, because evidently, and evidently is one of my favorite words, Clive. Evidently, I have a reverence for time. Evidently. So, Mr. Levine, let me see if I understand you. You have in every room of your house a clock and a timer? Yes, I do. Really? Yes, I do. In your kitchen? Yes, I do. In your bathroom? Yes, I do.
Gotta make it quick.
Wow. So why is that, Mr. Levine? Well, evidently, I have a reverence for time. See?
Thrive Nation, I have yet to meet a super successful person that does not have a reverence for time, who doesn't have a concept of time, who isn't irritated when the family leaves late to church. I've never met a successful person who is not bothered by people who are perpetually late. I've never met a successful person who is perpetually late. Now, there probably is an exception out there just so that, people can, have the devil's advocate there. But I've never met somebody who is very successful, who doesn't have a massive reverence for being on time. I just haven't seen it yet. And John D. Rockefeller, the guy who is sort of like the father of the fossil fuel industry. There's a book written about him called Titan, written by Ron Chernow. Great book there. And that book is just absolutely a life changer for somebody out there. But John D. Rockefeller, he talks about time management in the book. There's a lot of quotes in the book, Titan, by Ron Chernow about the life and times of John D. Rockefeller. This is a guy who grew up crazy poor, who became the world's wealthiest man in the oil and gas industry. And this guy started working at 16 full-time. His life is legendary. But he says, a man has no right to occupy another man's time unnecessarily. A man has no right to occupy another man's time unnecessarily. So if you're out there and you find yourself chronically late or running behind, you need to get on top of your calendar today, because people that are perpetually late, doesn't mean you're a bad person if you're late one time, but people who are perpetually late cannot and will not become successful. However, when you become super successful, you can be late all the time, and it's called being fashionably late. Before you're super successful and you're late, people just call you a jackass. This is one thing about you that it blew my mind the first time I had a chance to interview you. First off, I read your books. I'd read the Broken Window Theory and the PR Bible, and I'm just a big fan of your stuff. And
thank you.
You talk about how successful people are from Planet Epic, which I didn't know you at the time, but my marketing company, which is arguably one of the largest ones in Oklahoma, is called Make Your Life Epic. My photography company I started was called Epic Photography. I love the word epic. Can you talk to me about the Planet Epic?
And by the way, let me tell you what I would say to your audience members if I were in a Starbucks and Clay just walked away from our meeting. Here's what I'd say. Hey, friends, evidently Clay likes the word epic. Evidently. See? And that's the words and the things that we surround ourselves with are very telling and very important. And do you have a reverence for time? Because I'll tell you this, virtually all people who have great success have a reverence for time, and all underachievers have no reverence for time. Virtually all people who have great success have a reverence for time, and all underachievers have No reverence for time.
So I would ask you, what camp are you in? Are you fastidious about being on time? Do you care about being on time when you're late? Is it the exception? Or when you're late, is it the rule? Are you chronically late? Do people expect you to be late? Or do people expect you to be on time? If you want to become a super successful person, you must develop the habit of being on time. And
now you got to figure out which team you want to play on, evidently.
Very few people play on Team Epic.
Yeah, they don't even want to play.
And they think it's mean to do it. They think it's mean when you end a meeting at the agreed upon time. I mean, today I did the interview with Mr. Craig Rochelle, Pastor Craig. He let me know I have a hard out. With a hard out, that's code in the podcast and broadcast and the world of media that I am definitely going to end at this time, whether you're ready to end or not. But most people have a soft out or a peace out or no out. They just basically talk and they lament about their feelings for an hour and a half. After an event that just took place, they lament about it for an hour and a half. Then they go on social media and talk about it with a bunch of knuckleheads for 2.5 hours. Then they post a picture of a cloud on social media, right? Feelings.
Or a cat or a dog. I mean, it's really, it is remarkable. Now, the good news is that if you don't do those dopey things, right, you'll have a pretty easy path.
It's not very crowded.
You've been born into a generation at exactly the moment in which your competition overwhelmingly is stupid and lazy.
Yes, it's so true. It's so true. It's so true.
And when I mean stupid, I don't mean academically stupid. What I mean to say by stupid is their mind is distracted with nonsense, right? Their mind is incapacitated. They may have a inherently smart computer on the top of their shoulders, but their brain is incapacitated with distraction.
If it's okay, I would like to insert a little science to go with what you're saying. We just interviewed a Silicon Valley former executive by the name of Ellen Petrie Leanz. She was featured on the Megyn Kelly Show, and she wrote a book called The Happiness Hack. And in that book, they discovered, shockingly, that the amygdala, the almond-sized part of the brain, prevents the massive part of your brain from making critical decisions. You can't think critically when you're emotional. So when you're angry, you can't think. When you're laughing, you can't think. When you are sad, you can't think. And according to Psychology Today, we'll put this on the show notes, the average American now, Michael, receives 85 interruptions per day from their smartphone, which means that your smartphone is now making you dumber than ever before. So you have a smartphone making you dumb. You can't pay attention. You're perpetually distracted. So I asked Craig Rochelle, I said, Craig,
your smartphone is making you operationally stupid.
So the question that you need to ask yourself, that we all need to ask ourselves is, are we operationally dumb as a result of allowing perpetual distraction to keep us from focusing our forces and our energy on one specific task at hand? And this isn't a new concept. In fact, the famous scientist, inventor, and engineer, innovator, really, by the name of Alexander Graham Bell. It's Alexander Graham Bell, the guy who's created with inventing and patenting the first practical telephone. He once wrote, and I love this quote, he said, "Concentrate all your thoughts upon the work at hand. The sun's rays do not burn until brought to a focus." Concentrate all of your thoughts upon the work at hand. The sun's rays do not burn until brought into focus. So today, how many times did I check my Facebook status? Today. What do you think? 0. Today, how many times did I check my emails after I responded to all of the emails in the morning? So after I finished deleting all the emails, how many times do you think I checked email today? 0. Today, how many times do you think I checked my LinkedIn status? 0. Today, how many times do you think I checked YouTube comments? 0. Today, how many times do you think I answered a phone number I didn't know? 0. Today, how many times do you think that I went out there and discussed my feelings with other people, or my religious opinions or my political opinions with other people? 0. Successful people all focus on what they can control. All successful people I've ever spent time with exclusively focus on things that they can control. If they can't control it, they're not interested in it. And that is the mantra of all successful people. Focus, which stands for focus on core tasks until success. I repeat, focus on core tasks until success. I asked Pastor Craig today, I said, Pastor Craig, you've got, 100,000 people going to your church. You have the biggest church in the world. How often do you check your social media? And he says, well, I have 2 phones, but the one is always off, basically. And then I have one that I, deal with important things. The point is, he doesn't even go on there. He said it's set where he's made a lock on there for his own mind freedom where he cannot check social media on. He's locked it up where he has no apps, no push notifications. And if you're competing against people that are distracted, that's a lot like boxing against a guy who is, you're in a boxing ring with somebody and you're going head to head with a guy that's on his smartphone. I mean, you're just going to destroy the guy.
You're driving drunk. You are driving drunk. And the look on the faces of most young people, and even people, not young people, disease is now transmuted beyond just young people. The look of addiction on the face is, just primal and visceral.
It is absolutely 100% the problem for many people out there. Planet Epic, I want you to talk about these goals of super successful people. How are the goals of Prince? How are the goals of Michael Jackson? How are they different from that of the average musician that reached out to you for public relations help?
I think the people that I represented in this most unusual life and career I've had a relationship with destiny, that they felt internally that they were destined for extraordinary things. And so that relationship with destiny, I think, created an epic life. Now, not always a happy life, by the way. There is enormous sacrifice to success or super success. You must say, as Steve Jobs taught us, 1,000 no's to get one big yes. So let's talk straight. If you want to be a world-class anything, you're going to have to give up a lot. You're going to have to turn down a lot of distractions. And some of them are going to be difficult, and some of them may be even painful. But that is the price of greatness. It's just how it is, and so it is, and so it goes.
Thrive Nation, successful people say no more than anybody else. As an example, just in the past 60 days, I've been asked to speak at dozens of events all across the country. I have been sent text messages from people who somehow have found my cell phone number, and they've said, "Can we meet for coffee?" And I've said no. There have been many, many people that really don't know what they're talking about who have reached out to be guests on the Thrivetime show, and I have said no. There is a college that I once attended, and I went to 3 colleges, so I'll let you guess as to which college it is, who's asked me to come speak yet again. And I said, no. There are people that email me every day, feelings and opinions that I don't value. So I hit delete. And all successful people are very, very okay, very familiar with, very good at saying no. And at first, when you learn to say no, it feels bad, because, you're not used to saying no. But Steve Jobs once said, he said, people think focus means saying yes to the thing you've got to focus on. But that's not what it means at all. It means saying no to the 100 other good ideas that there are. I repeat, May 16th, 2011. Steve Jobs writes, people think focus means saying yes to the thing you've got to focus on. That's not what it means at all. It means saying no to the 100 other good ideas that there are. Kobe Bryant has a notable quotable I wanted to read to you, and I also wanted to read to you a notable quotable from the late, great Martin Luther King Jr. Kobe Bryant was coached by a friend of mine named Paul Pressey. Paul was the assistant coach on the Lakers, and I became a big Kobe fan after hearing about his work ethic. And he writes, I can't relate to lazy people. We don't speak the same language. I don't understand you. I don't want to understand you. Kobe Bryant.
It's about right. I don't get it. You have precious little time here. Precious time. Remember, I told you I was born 2.5 miles north of Ground Zero, which means that I witnessed, I was there and witnessed 9/11. Life is short and life is unpredictable, and to lose the opportunity of doing something you've been born to do I just don't relate to it. I wish them well. I don't wish anyone ill. If you say to me, Michael, I deeply desire to waste my life, I don't wish you ill. I just don't relate to you. It's not something that I relate to.
Michael, real quick, this is something I want to make sure the listeners get. People who've been around the Tulsa area know that I hang out a lot with certain people in town. People that own banks, they own businesses. And we didn't just sit together and say, hey, let's make a list of elite people that we want to surround ourselves with because we're awesome. No, because we all grew up poor. Or in my case, I stuttered and grew up without money. Dr. Zellner's case, he had a speech impediment. We all grew up with something. You were dyslexic, right?
And by the way, I will note to you that often I believe that disability, the disadvantage turns out in the end, painful though it was, to be an advantage.
People don't know this. Kobe Bryant played a game in 7th grade basketball, and he never scored a single point. And he said the ridicule that he received because his father was a professional basketball player motivated him to have the most intense work ethic ever. So,
the disadvantage, can turn out to be an advantage if you play your cards right. And that's what life is. Life is a series. Some of us get bad cards and play them well. Some of us get good cards and play them bad. Some of us get medium cards and play them medium. How you play your cards will determine your destiny. And I'm so honored to be talking to people in your audience, a large audience, that are determined to try every day to learn how to play their cards better.
Our listeners are people that we teach this at our conferences. I know you'll be at the December conference. By the way, very excited to have you at the December conference. If you're out there listening and you want to attend a conference where you get to ask questions directly to the man who has given advice to 3 United States presidents, to Prince, to Michael Jackson, to Nike, to Charlton Heston. I'm missing other people. Nancy Kerrigan. Michael, who else am I missing? Who else have you coached over the years?
George Carlin, Joan Rivers, John Voight. There's thousands of celebrities, but the 3 U.S. presidents. One of the things I'm proud of is both political parties. So I'm very grateful to this nation, which I am deeply, deeply, deeply concerned about. I am very grateful. What happened to me could only have happened in America, and so I want to share with people in whatever remaining years I have left, some ideas, particularly attracted to sharing them with underdogs, and that means anyone who didn't come from privilege. And that means my minority friends, my African American friends, my Hispanic friends, my friends that come. I was an underdog, and I have an attraction to talking to underdogs. And it can be done. It can be done. Now, is it simple? No. Is it easy? No. Is the game fair? No. Will you have to do sometimes more than fairness would require? Yes. If you want to be broke in America, the number one thing you got to do, all you got to do, is think like a victim. And this is what I'm so deeply concerned about, is too many Americans, unfortunately, are thinking like victims.
Oh, that was deep. He said, if you want to be broke in America today, the land of opportunity, you must think like a victim. Again, if you want to be broke in this great, great land of opportunity, you have to think like a victim. And a victim just means that, as a kid, I used to stutter a lot as a kid, right? I stuttered a lot as a kid. I had a neighbor that sexually abused me, and, I got mocked because I stuttered a lot as a kid, right? I took algebra 3 times. Took my ACT 3 times. I could run around saying, gosh, I wish I had a better memory. Oh, I'm so bitter about the way I grew up. That's why I haven't had any success. Oh, my dad wasn't rich. My dad did the best job he possibly could. But we could all run around making a list of things that are keeping us from being successful. And if we did that, we would become victims. But a victor is somebody who turns their negativity into positivity. Nobody would want to know the story of Abraham Lincoln if he, tonight on the History Channel, we share a story about a man who was born successful, who died successful. His name was... No, we like Abraham Lincoln because he lost all the time when running for office. He failed in business. His childhood sweetheart died. He had a nervous breakdown. He fought adversity his entire life. He ended slavery and died for it. No one would want to know the story if you hadn't gone through something. That's why epic movies are so powerful. It's the heroic character. He encounters some adversity and he pushes through it en route to success. That's what makes epic movies. We all want to see the good guy beat the bad guys. Nobody wants to hear your story if the good guy just dominates since birth. He had a silver spoon handed to him and just dominates. You've got to go through something. What's happening is as you go through something, struggle builds strength. Again, struggle builds strength. So as you're going through something, you're developing strength as a result of your struggle, and you're developing a story based upon your truth. You're gaining skills that will allow you to pay the bills as a result of adversity. With no pain, there is no gain. And it's up to you to decide whether you want to become a victim or a victor. December 7th and 8th, victors, people who want to be victors, not victims, people who are wanting to become better, not bitter, they're going to all arrive in Tulsa, Oklahoma on December 7th and 8th. And rumor has it you're going to be attending the workshop. Is that correct, my friend?
It is true. I've never been to Tulsa. I'm excited about the chance to talk to some of your nice friends. Give it to them straight. I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be a great opportunity for me to share some of my ideas and values and listen to some of the concerns and ideas and challenges that people are having in their lives.
Michael, my final question for you. I know you got to go here you got to move on and do some other things with your life today. I appreciate you hopping on the show here. But Michael Jackson, you were in the physical presence of the King of Pop. Could you describe for the listeners just what the aura or mindset was of probably one of the top musicians of all time, Michael Jackson?
I think that without speaking about him personally, I think that this is something that can be said about him and others. You are unwise in the extreme if you judge geniuses by normal people standards. And that genius could be Michael Jackson or Steve Jobs or Bill Gates or Barack Obama or anyone who has achieved that level of success. They're operating on with a different frequency. And so we must not judge, we are unwise to judge them by just the normal contemporary standard of the day. They're just not, they're playing in a different game.
Michael, thank you for writing 19 books, even though you're dyslexic. Thank you for fighting the fight, for moving from the right coast to the left coast and rounding up the world's superstars and distilling it into your books. And thank you for agreeing to come out there to the workshop. And for all the listeners out there, we have a special going right now. If you would like to get your tickets free, all you have to do, you got to take some action. Go on to iTunes, subscribe to the podcast, leave us an objective review, and then email us proof that you did it to info@thrivetimeshow.com. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. Leave us an objective review. Email us proof that you did it to info@thrivetimeshow.com. And you not only get to meet Michael Levine, but you also get to attend for the low, low price of free. And it's just $37 for the workbook and the food. But it's going to be a life-changing event for somebody. Michael, we like to end the show with a boom, which around here stands for big, overwhelming, optimistic momentum. And so we always end it with a 3, 2, 1, and a boom. So, Michael, are you ready for a boom? Are you ready?
I am.
Here we go. 3, 2, 1.
Want to attend the legendary Thrivetime Show Business Workshop for free? Subscribe on iTunes, leave an objective review, and send us confirmation at info@thrivetimeshow.com to claim your tickets. Want to live in a van down by the river? Come by and see us at our Riverwalk offices, and we'll be able to make your dreams come true.